right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Filling the Gap.
Yes.
If you don't know, now you're about to know. This is our mission statement. Here it is. Filling the Gap is dedicated to bridging disparities and creating equitable opportunities for all individuals. We believe our mission is to identify and address gaps in various domains. We strive to empower individuals and communities, ensuring that no one is left behind. And together we can fill the gap and build a brighter future for all.
For everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody. Everybody is included. Listen, we want to thank you, too, for all the DMs and those who've been giving shout-outs, supporting us. Listen, continue to subscribe, continue to share, continue to like, continue to DM us, encourage us as well as we talk about topics that are dear not only to our heart, but your heart as well. I want to give a special shout-out, if I can, I talked to your grandmother today, your grandmother, great-grandmother, actually. I talked to both of them. And your great-grandmother was like, tell Malik I just love him. And every time I see him, he just has that smile. So let him know I love him. So wanted to share that with you today that your great-great-grandmother says keep smiling. And then I talked to your grandmother today, my mom, and she was saying how you remember Miles, Bernita, our cousin, your second cousin, when we went back last year for my grandparents' anniversary.
Yeah.
And you took a picture with Miles, her son, light skin, had glasses on.
I think so.
No one wears a bow tie. But anyway, my mom told me that he follows you on TikTok.
Oh.
And that you're inspiration to him. So shout out to Miles, to my cousin Bernita. If you're watching this YouTube, we'll make sure you get it. Thank you guys for following Malik, keeping in touch with him and allowing him to be that positive role model. Yeah, they said you're very positive.
Also, special shout out. So I was talking to Papa last week. Papa is his dad. Papa called me. He was like, Malik. He was like, how y'all get them angles? He thought we were doing it in real time. Like we was just switching. And I was like, no, I was explaining to Papa. I was like, no, we do it. I do all the editing and after, and I just cut the different parts of who's talking and whatnot. And he was just like, "Oh, that's so good," because he used to work
church.
Like yeah.
I remember as a kid, man, I used to go downtown with him, Chicago, and shout out to Chi-Town, Chicago, and we'd go in and man, it used to be long hours in them editing rooms. He'd be editing them tapes and carrying that equipment. Oh man, that's bringing back memory. I forgot about that. But yeah, and he still from time to time. I don't know if he still does it at the church. But yeah, he did that for umpteen years. I mean, a long time with that video equipment. So yeah, that's crazy.
Shout out Papa.
Crazy. So we've been talking about our different topics. Last week we talked about the power of fear and fear, and today we're going to shift gears a little bit as it continues to flow, and then deal with offense. Let's talk about offense, man. I think that is heavy. Nowadays, and some of us, in life get offended by just a word, just a look that somebody give us, and we don't even know that we're dealing with the spirit of offense or offense, but a lot of times we do. So I'm gonna read a definition. Let me just read one of them. It says the definition of offense from the dictionary says annoyance or resentment brought about by a perceived insult to or disregard for oneself or one's standards or principles. And that's crazy. It also says from a biblical standpoint, in order to get over the spirit of offense or being offended, we need to give what we're feeling immediately over to God and ask him for help.
Right.
And ask him for forgiveness. And for some of us, for some people that may be watching who may not be a believer like we are, they may not have God in their life to go to walk them through that place of offense. They may have a therapist. They may have their mom or their dad. They may have their spouse or a close friend. But when we talk about offense, what do you think is a reason for any person to be offended? Why do we deal with the spirit of offense? I know growing up, and since we're talking about filling the gap, two different generations, me growing up, to be honest, I never knew the word offended even existed.
Right.
Because when we grew up, it was a place of reverence. So offense never crossed our minds as children growing up. because we just reverence.
Yeah.
If we weren't afraid of getting our bus whooped or, being on punishment, we will reverence because we go to church. We fear God. We reverence our parents or our guardians. But it was nothing that any one of them could have said to us to make us get offended or feel appalled.
Yeah.
Even growing up in school, we had the dirty dozens. We talked about each other. So it was, even in that sense, we didn't look at what somebody said about my clothes or my mama that I got offended. I would just come right back with your mama.
Yeah.
Your daddy ain't got no teeth in his mouth.
Right.
So it's like, so where over the generations, over the years, where did offense begin to, I guess, come out so much to the point where everything a person says or does, we now take it personal?
Right. I think it can stem from this aspect of sensitivity.
Yeah.
Within us. Like we have something so close to us that sometimes a lot of people may not, I guess, understand, but when people hit on a certain subject or hit on a certain matter, we get offended.
Yeah.
Whether it's because it usually stems from pride, where we feel like since we've been in something for so long, that we can't be taught or learn anything new, right? So I feel like, especially in this generation, when you've been doing something for so consistent for so long, and you're getting the same old routine, it's like, oh, you can't tell me anything because I've been in the game for so long. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in the game, there's always something for you to learn and for you to grow it's because we as individuals and humans we have a whole different lifestyle. We have so many different experiences, so many different journeys. And because you've grown up and you've done this and you've gone through this avenue, doesn't mean that you can't learn from someone else who may be totally different, may not have as much experience from you.
Yeah.
But I feel like the people who make it, to wherever their goal is because they're humble and, they walk in that humility where they're able to learn from people who have not only gone before them, but also learn from people who not even where they are, to be like, okay, I like this idea. I see what you're doing. But it definitely starts with like this humility and not being so sensitive and like to the point where it's like they're just coming against me. They're just wanting to tear me down or anything like that.
Right.
Because that's what you were saying. It was just like that word, and it's not a reverence for individuals. Sometimes you can have a lack of reverence for people just because you think you know it all.
Yeah. And I think part of that too comes from the environment. Again, you can't get away from that. The environment in which a person is raised in.
Right.
And what they see visually with their eyes, what they hear out of their ear gates in their homes or with their friends, which makes it that much more difficult as they're growing. And say a person is gifted or talented in something. If you got more yes man in your circle that's saying, yeah, you bad, or you number one, you the girl, you the guy, can nobody stop you? You whatever you say goes, and and they feed in that ego,
right?
Which is really a spirit, but they're feeding that pride or that selfishness in you. You get the big head,
right?
I've
recently, because I was talking to some of my musician friends, and I've recently had to like stop doing that, because after every time you play like a worship service or something, you go up to the musician, you're like, yo, you was playing like you did that, whether they was good or bad. Man, I was talking to somebody and he was like, I don't say that. Like I'm not about to lie to them and tell them. And I was like, you know what? I'm about to do that too. Cause I've been to some services and I go dab up the musician and they'd be like, bro, it was so good playing with you. I'm just like, yeah, man, same with you. Like, come on, keep on, like, you know what I mean? Like you can't tell them they was killing when they won killing. Yeah. So it's like you can't give them this false hope to feed their ego.
Right.
Sometimes you just want to be like, man, just come on, keep on practicing.
Yeah.
It just, but
or go to easy. Just go the safe way out. To God be the glory, man.
Right.
God moved. Just have to shift it up and take control of the conversation. So
it's just awkward because they compliment you and they fishing because they trying to get one back. They trying to get a compliment back.
Yeah.
But you just look at You just looking at him like, yeah.
Yeah, it's been many days like that. There's one time I remember I was playing when I was in college at Northern University, and this one guy, shout out to Mike Witherspoon. Anybody know Mike Witherspoon, Chicago? We were together. I think he was a senior. I was a sophomore. And he came on campus. I was like, dude, who's this dude? He real smooth and the pocket was bad. So we both playing for the Black Choir, NIU Black Choir. Mm-hmm. And man, we had a concert. He got on the drums and we were switching off. He got on the drums and he played his one song and the chops he was doing.
Yeah.
And then everybody was just looking at him playing. And then after that, it was my turn to play. And the next song, I said, dude, you good. You just go ahead and finish it out. I was like, I ain't getting on there.
Yeah.
I'm not offended. And that's the thing. Thank you, Holy Ghost. I wasn't offended because I was humble enough and respectful enough to always be in a teachable place. And I looked at that as, man, this dude he killing it. I said, ain't no way number one, I was like, ain't no way I'm going to embarrass myself and come up and play behind Mike Witherspoon.
Right.
And he just destroyed this set.
Yeah.
And I got to come and play it. Nah, I said, dude, it's only 2 songs left. You finish it out. I'm just going to take notes.
Right.
Because I was able to learn something. Because I knew I was still developing as a young drummer, but there were things he was doing that I didn't know how to do. So I didn't have a big hit, even though I was the number one drummer before he came. But when he came and his experience, I knew, okay, this is something I can learn from this man.
Right.
And he gave me some lessons. He gave me some pointers that I carried the rest of my life. But I'm like, I can learn from him. So I'm not going to be like the big head like I didn't arrive.
Right. When
I see that, okay, there's still things I need to learn.
Yeah.
And that was because I was willing to learn. And I think part of it too is, just to break the spirit of being offended, we have to ask ourselves that question, how far do you want to go? And are you willing to continue to learn your craft, to learn your gift, to learn how to fine tune what's been placed in your hands?
What you said is good. To remain teachable. That's the biggest takeaway from the story. Like, you could have easily got offended. Like, nah, man, I was number one before he got here.
Right.
I'm supposed to be in this spot. I'm supposed to be the main drummer. But you saw that it's like, okay, there's something in him that I know I can glean from, learn from. And I think it goes to like a mutual respect thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you have that respect, well, it keeps going back to reverence. Like, because when you reverence someone, you want the best for them.
Right.
You want the best for them. But for sure, to remain teachable and not be so within yourself. That
selfish.
No, yeah,
prideful,
that's all it is.
Arrogant, egotistic.
Exactly.
Go on and on and
exactly.
on. Yeah.
Like, it's when you're not so selfish in that way where it's all about you. And it's almost narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
Where it's like the whole world just revolves around you. That's not the case. That's why whenever somebody wants to tell you something you think is about you, you get offended. And it's just like the nature of it, because you don't know nothing else but knowing that people's gonna gas you up, gonna tell you everything you need to hear. But the moment you hear something that's like that, like, comes against you, then you like, oh, I never want that person around me again. But it's not the person, it's you. Like, you need to check yourself.
Yeah, and that's so crazy, because when you said that, one of the movies that became so famous over time was Drumline.
I was thinking about Drumline too.
Drumline, yeah,
I was thinking about Drumline too.
Yeah, Drumline, and he was boy's bad.
Yeah,
and he was playing. He knew, but the thing about it is he knew he was bad,
right?
Because of his circle, his gift, his ability. And it wasn't until he got into an environment where he had to learn that, even though you're good, it ain't about you,
right?
And I think part of our challenge is, from generation to generation, is to know our purpose. And when you're developing your purpose and understand who you are, and that you can't succeed by yourself, you have to come out of a place of being offended when someone is really wanting to encourage you in love to do better, or to think differently, or to think higher. And that's part of the challenge. Because as soon as when we talked about entitlement, as soon as you deal with somebody that's entitled or they just think they've arrived, when you try to give them some constructive criticism or encourage them in love, they don't want to hear it,
Right.
because they're like, oh, the first thing that come out their mouth, you're jealous of me,
Yeah.
or you just hating on me. What I got to hate on?
Mm-hmm.
What am I jealous of?
Right. Even in the movie, like he knew he was bad.
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? Miles. Miles knew he was bad, and then Sean was, the main drum leader at the time.
Yeah.
I feel like within offense, there are insecurities that you deal with, but they go under the radar, because they're suppressed by your giftings and the things that you feel like carry you.
Mm-hmm.
But under the radar, you're struggling with all these insecurities, but you don't want anyone to see those.
Yeah. That's true, because that's what happened with him, because they found out he couldn't read music.
Right. He couldn't even read music. He was lying the whole time.
Yeah.
He was lying about about getting into the program. Like even when his audition, it was just like he just went up there because he memorized it from everybody else.
Yeah.
Because he really didn't know what he was doing, but he was just like, I know this is my gift. I know what I can do.
Yeah.
So let's go do it.
And that's the thing too. He was so gifted in so many ways, and he had an ear to hear,
right,
which was super important. But he was missing the one component to take him over the top, and that was the ability to read music.
Mm-hmm.
He was phenomenal in what he knew, but he needed more in order to go higher. And part of the challenge is, even for now, with so much changing in society, things changing in ministry, things changing all over, and it's accelerating.
Right.
Remember, he got a scholarship, which means that he was more advanced than other people.
Yeah.
So he should have been in a place where reading music should have been already in his DNA, but he took that shortcut,
mm-hmm.
and he thought he could just get it off his talent by itself, and that wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening nowadays. When we get offended, we're believing we can just get it just off our gift, or get it off our talent, or get it off of because we know somebody who knows somebody.
Right.
And the crazy part about it is, even when the music director went to interview him at his house and brought him on board, he said, "But now I know the truth. This is what you're going to have to do.
Right.
I'm pulling you from the line. You need to go. You got to take these extra music classes to learn theory, to learn how to read."
Yep.
Because the MD recognized, okay, you can't teach your way through this.
Yeah.
He was mad. He was offended.
He was
offended. And it took him a minute, but it also took people in his circle, like the girl and some of the other guys, to encourage him, dude, you got to do this.
Yep.
No matter how painful it is. But it wasn't just that. He had an anger management problem.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the spirit of offense or being offended, offense is never by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Offense, or the spirit of offense, is always tied into another emotion or feeling or some other trauma that we've experienced, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because if you're offended, which means that if something I've said is irritating an emotion in you, where did that irritation come from? What else have you experienced in your past that now, because I said one thing, you're offended? I said one thing, you don't want to be my friend no more. I just said your shoes don't match your pants, dude. You offended. You don't want to be my friend no more. What are you holding on to?
Exactly.
That triggered you to be offended to you don't even be my friend.
Does that
so
hurt?
It's deep in it. Right. There you go. It's hurt. It's trauma. It's something else that triggered, that type of response.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it's important too, because when you're talking about his gift made room for him. But what he was missing was the community aspect, right? Because he was just like, I'm big bad all by myself. I don't really need the line. I don't need nobody. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was thinking that's how sometimes we can be. Like, we feel like we put ourselves in these positions when we did not. Like, our gifts, it says gifts come without repentance. Like, we have our gifts to use for the Lord and for his work. Not just to be like, oh, this is the gift that I just discovered that I had, and I put myself here. I found out I was really good at speaking, so I'm going to do something speaking worthy. But no, this is like the gift that you have belongs back to the Lord. What he realized was, oh, you know what? I'm a better drummer. I'm a better person a better leader in the line together in community. Towards the end, it's like you see them, win the whole battle of the bands or drumline thing,
Right.
because he finally got in his senses like, I can't do this by myself. And he dealt with his spirit of offense through his hurt, through his trauma, through community. Sometimes when we go through things, we need community around us to help us in our certain situations. But with offense, it blocks us from feeling like we can go to anybody, because there's nobody that's going to understand us, or nobody who we can talk to, because you feel like you got to do it by yourself, which is not the case.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the one thing that the enemy wants to play on your mind, is like, you have to do this by yourself, which is not the case.
No, it's not. It's not. But you're right, because, someone that deals with spiritual offense, and I've been down that road myself. I'd be transparent, be honest. I think most of us have, in one way or another, have dealt with, some type of offense, whether it's mom, pops, dad, girlfriend, boyfriend, ex, grandparent, anybody, all of us, teacher, somebody on the job. We've all dealt with some level of offense. And that goes back to that question. Why am I allowing what they say or do trigger a response out of me that I know is not really in me? That's not my character. That's not my heart. And a lot of times I think we have to self-reflect to see, okay, why am I responding this way? What's in me that's causing me to allow something so small that they're saying to cause me to blow up?
Right.
Because sometimes, we hold stuff in for so long because we don't deal with it.
Yep.
We sweep it under the rug, or we block it out. And then when someone presses that button, it's like all heck break loose.
I feel like that goes back to learning how to communicate within yourself, because we have things that we deal with other people, and if something happens, we communicate with them how we feel and this and that. But I feel like sometimes we struggle with communicating with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like I think for me I feel like for me it's been so easy to be like, oh, I see this person is struggling with this person is doing this person is going to go there, this person is going to do this. And then it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, what is the Holy Spirit saying to you? And it's like, okay, now I got to like check myself and be like, oh, okay, this is what God is saying to me. This is what it is that mirror. And I feel like sometimes we forget that we got to do that within ourselves, and do like a daily, checkup. Like, are we okay? Like, are we good? Like, is there something that's bitter in our hearts, or something that's hurting us, or that's something that's keeping us from moving forward? And we got to go, and check those things. Like, was it something that somebody said that got me offended today, or, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think, how have you recognized, from your own experience, that you're no longer dealing with that offense? It could be, you don't have to name people, none of that, but just say if someone said something or did something and you always you felt offended. But then over time, as you said, you looked in the mirror, you did self-reflection, that once it was said again, or if it was said again, you found yourself not being offended.
Yeah.
So has there ever been a point in your life where you felt the change or the shift?
I feel like it goes back to whatever was said and you felt offended, whatever scenario it may be. I definitely think it first starts with forgiveness, whether it's with the other person or with yourself. Forgiveness is so important, because maybe somebody said something that was, way out of line, or whatever it may be. Forgiveness is so important, because I feel like when you forgive, you allow God to come in and do what he needs to do within you in the situation.
Yeah.
Because with forgiveness, you don't have to take it into your own hands. You don't have to, it says like vengeance belongs to the Lord. So you don't have to go out of your way to try to, I'm going to get him back, or anything like that when you feel offended, but to forgive. And if it happens again, I think a lot of things go back to the root of identity. Like when you know who you are and the things that God has called you to continue to walk in it.
Yeah.
There is times where after like I had my transition and other things, there is people who would come to me And some would be encouraging, and some would also, talk down to me, and I would have to like check myself and be like, oh, I can't listen to this, or I can't like put myself in this headspace or this mindset to think that I'm that when I'm not. Right. When you know you're not whatever people are saying about you, but to continue to move forward in that and not take it too hard, because they don't know the conversations that you have with God. They don't know your lifestyle outside of a social media, outside of a, on an Instagram or anything, because that platform is just highlight reel. It's to show the best of the best. Nobody's gonna go in there and just be like, this is such a sad day. It's just to show like your highlight reel, but nobody really knows what's happening behind the scenes and the conversations that you have with God.
Right. Yeah. And that makes a difference, because as you're progressing and moving through life, there are going to be times where people will say things, text things, email things, voice message things, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, and that goes back to, what would Jesus do? Having a mindset to know that we're not here to please everybody. We're not here to, make everybody happy. There's only one person we need to make happy, and that's him. Mm-hmm. So when we understand that, those of us who are believers, that if he was persecuted, we're going to be persecuted. If he went through, we're going to have to go through. It's just like you said, having the mindset to know, okay, as I'm maturing, I now have to recognize that it's not the natural person, because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. So it's not the natural person that I'm offended by. Yeah. It's the spirit that they're dealing with that I now have to remind myself, I don't need to be offended at all, because that's a spirit. That's something else within them that's upset and angry, that want to lash out at me to get me off my square, get me off my assignment. Right. So I think we have to change our mindset, transform our mind, renew our mind, so that as we understand who we are, then there's nothing no one else can say to us to make us get offended. Because we know who we are. We know what we're called to do. We know our space. We know we're growing. Mm-hmm. We know we have to listen to other people that are in places that we're striving to get to. And we have to be able to take that. Like, one thing we always say to you all is, when people say stuff, you eat the meat, spit out the bone. Yeah. You hear it all, but you don't have to take it all in. Mm-hmm. So how do you protect yourself from being offended? Don't take it all in. Right. Take the positive, look at it as Romans 8:28 says, for the good of those called according to purpose. So you take, even if they may say it in a negative way, you have the authority to change it into a positive way, mm-hmm. and apply that positivity to your life. If you made a mistake, don't nobody need to tell you made a mistake, so you don't need to get offended if they just come out and say, dude, you shouldn't, why you do that? Right. There's no need to get offended. Yeah, I did do that. My bad. I know what I need to do moving forward, because your mind is on a greater level. Right. And I think that's part of our challenge, mm-hmm. is make sure our mind, our way of thinking is different. Right. We were talking to someone, your mom was talking to somebody yesterday, and we were having a conversation, and they was like, it's a shame that when you pull somebody from an environment, you could pull their body out the environment, but their mind is still there. Mm. And it goes back to the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. Because they really couldn't foresee where they were going, they rather have stayed in a place of bondage. And they got offended with progress because they wanted to go back to a place of lack. That's Jesus. Crazy. And Moses was like, no, I'm getting you to the more, but you wanted the lack. Right. Because they couldn't see it yet. Mm-hmm. And part of our challenge is trying to get people to see where they belong, because they're comfortable with where they at. Yeah. You can't, and that's the challenge. So people get offended when you're pulling them out of a comfortable place, right? To go into a place of purpose, a place of milk and honey. They're crying for milk and honey. Mm-hmm. You're leading them to milk and honey, but they're getting offended by you encouraging them to get the milk and honey. Right? What the heck? It don't make no sense. No sense at all. It don't make no sense. No. Oh my goodness! But it's like people don't know your story. Right. Like, that's why you got to continue to go. You can't let people from on the left and the right of you tell you something and it deter you and it slow you down. But it's like, if like, I remember I was preaching a message on 2 Sundays ago,
And someone asked me like, how do you continue to go when you feel like so much is just happening? Like, how do you continue to push forward?
Yeah.
And I was like, in my notes in my phone, I keep a document of all the prophetic words that I've gotten, that people have told me, that I write down. And I'm like, I look through it and I'm like, this didn't happen, so I know God's still working. This one didn't happen, so I know God is still working. This one didn't happen, I know He's still working. Okay, this one happened. This one down here didn't happen. And it's like, you go through them and it's like, okay, these are the things that I know God has promised me, and I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And I have to keep going to see it. And it's like, it's like you said, we can't say like, oh, we want the more, we want to go for the more. We got people pushing us to the more, but it's like we get so scared and fearful that we like, actually back there was good. I really don't even want to be back there, but back there was just so comfortable.
Right.
You know, it don't make no sense, but it's just like we got to continue to move forward.
Yeah, it's a safe space.
Right.
You know, people are like, no, it's a safe space for me. I felt a place of safety, and even though I didn't have what I wanted, I was comfortable because I wasn't stressed. So when you get stressed, you get offended because it's like, we see the more in you. We know it's more in you. We want to encourage you to have what God has for you, but now you don't want to do the work.
Right.
So a lot of time offense comes because people don't, you know, they don't want to do the work either. You know, they want it, but they don't want to do the work. They want it off your strength. They want it off your influence and your strength. And when you say, no, you can't have it off my influence and strength, you got to do it. You got 2 legs and 2 hands.
Right.
Work was in your hands. They're like, no, that's when offense comes as well. Because it ties, again, entitlement. What's in your environment? How are you raised? What's in your ear gate?
Right.
So when, you know,
so good.
The opportunity is presented before you, whether it's in a relationship, business, finance, whatever it is that you're seeking to advance in, when the person that's helping you has to share something in encouragement or in love to correct you, why are you getting offended?
Right.
Why not just say, you know what, you're right. You know what, let me reflect. I think, you know, the word is so powerful. It says that we got to keep ourselves in a position to reflect. You know, don't be so quick to speak.
Right.
But soak it in, reflect, you know, meditate on it, you know, before you respond. See, so many times when we get offended, we're so quick to react, but we should be responding. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
You're acting out of your feelings and emotions, but you respond after careful reflection and thoughtful process. So you got to take time, because it goes back to the children of Israel. They sent the spies into the promised land, right? 10 came back with because of what they reacted upon.
Yeah.
The other 2 came back from a response. So 10 came back because of fear and emotions and feelings and gave a negative report. That's a reaction. But the 2 came back and responded because they analyzed the situation and they knew who their God was.
Right.
So they knew that God could do it. So part of the challenge with breaking the spirit of offense and not walking in offense is knowing who you are and knowing who is going to provide the provision you need for your next level, and trusting that. People get offended because they don't trust. They don't trust because they don't love. They can't love because they've been hurt. So offense is just not because someone says something to me I don't like. It's also coming from a place of abandonment, a place of a lack of love or being hurt before, or not trusting. Because if you trust somebody, what they say to you is not going to offend you. It's going to help you learn or see it in a different lens. We're so busy walking around with blinders on that we can't see left or right.
Right.
You know, so.
Because you don't trust nobody.
Don't trust nobody.
It's definitely an emotion issue. It's definitely like an emotional place when you get offended. From like hurt to not trusting. Like you hit it all. You broke that thing down. Like you broke it down. It's just like everything you said was just so spot on. Because from seeing people get offended firsthand, and even being offended myself, it's like that's where it stems from. It's an emotion that's like an anger or like, oh, I don't trust you, or like you said, like you're jealous, or there's an insecurity, or something that's there that is making it seem like they're just saying this because they want to be in my position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's definitely is like an emotional state of being that people just need to get help, get delivered from.
Yeah.
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 And put your pride aside. But I think it goes and it stems, the root of it, just identity and walking in humility. That's when you know that you can reverence another person and, like you said, become teachable, then that's how you get rid of it.
Yeah, it is. And another way you know you are no longer struggling with it, it says in Matthew 5:44, it says, Jesus says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Man, that's a challenge for some folks.
Yep.
You mean you want me to love somebody who I know hate my guts, and then you want me to pray for them? That I know they don't like me?
Did you wrong.
That's how you know you're matured.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what they're going through and what they did cannot affect you any longer.
Right.
There was a time in my life where some things had happened and I was very offended. I was hurt. I was dealing with a lot. I was broken. And when I read that scripture and I prayed, God told me, he said, now when you pray, release and surrender everything that person or people or that situation, whatever it was, to me so I can take it away from you.
Yeah.
Because when you deal with the spirit of offense or you're offended, it blocks your progress. It blocks your blessings. It can cloud judgment. It can make you make wrong decisions based off emotions. So when you're free from offense and you're trusting, then it goes back to the scripture of faith. Substance things hoped for, evidence things not seen. Now you're saying, I believe and I trust no matter the process, because I understand where I'm going and I know what it's going to take for me to get there.
Yeah.
And the word is so true. How can we say we love God who we never seen, Jesus who we never seen, but can't love our brother and sister who we see every day?
Right.
You're not getting offended by God when he says stop sleeping around because you do it anyway, or stop doing this and that because you're going to do it anyway. And then for those who do, they surrender. They don't say, Jesus, I'm offended by you. No.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't say,
yeah.
Holy Ghost, get out of my spirit. No, they don't. You're not going to do that because it's a like you said, it's a different level of reverence. Mm-hmm. Even if your love is not yet unconditional to Jesus, you're not going to not try your best to walk like him or to serve or to please, because that's your ultimate goal. No matter the good, bad, or ugly, you're not getting offended by the word. You're not getting offended by what he says. But when it comes through other people or other people in the natural encourage you or try to help you do right, now obviously you got a problem.
What it is definitely because offense is a flesh thing.
Yeah.
Right? So when we got people in our life that start speaking truth and conviction to our spirit,
that's good.
Then that's when our flesh want to
rise up
and try to come against what someone who's trying to help us get us free from, or like help us.
Yeah.
But our flesh are just like, no, like, it's just this uproar of like, no, it can't be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the spirit is like, oh, this is what you need. But your flesh is fighting you right now, which is making you want to cause this scene and just go into an uproar when it don't really need to be. But it's because of your emotions and the things that you're still dealing with that you're not willing to lay down, that when you hear this truth, everything just breaks out.
Yeah. And it's so crazy you said that, because as you were speaking, the Holy Ghost revealed to me, when we look at the word offense, you see the word off and you see fence. And the enemy wants you to be by yourself fenced in. So no one else can speak to you but it. And that's part of the problem. We allow ourselves to get into this me, myself, and I, woe with me party, me against the world, fenced in our own little bubble.
Right. That
we're not able to get the encouragement or have people pour into us to help us come out of a dark place.
Right.
Help us come into the light.
Yeah.
They're like Caroline, come into the light. They don't want to come into the light. But that's so important, because if you find yourself fenced in or in your own little sphere, that means you're struggling. That means you're dealing with something that you need to come out of. And, I think that is a good segue too for next week. But this is man, we may have to continue with
Yeah,
this.
no, we can definitely keep going with this one.
This is deep, because when you deal, we probably will, because with offense, if a person deal with offense, that means they're not gonna listen. They're not gonna follow instructions.
Mm-mm.
They're gonna do their own thing, which can create a whole calamity. So something that should have took you 11 days would take you 40 years.
Right. Miss the whole thing.
Miss it all. Miss every single bit. What would have happened if the children of Israel did not follow the instructions and march around Jericho for 7 days? What if they would have just quit? People are already laughing at them.
Mm-hmm.
They could have been offended right then and there, but they trusted what the angel of the Lord told them to do. And I think part of overcoming offense is that we can't allow ourselves to keep getting mad with the people we say we trust. If I'm going to be in your life, or someone is in your life to be that support system, to be your mentor that you say was placed in your life, then you can't keep beating them up or rebelling against them for something you're still struggling with in your own life. If they're there to only help you,
right,
and you say you trust them, but yet you're offended. What?
Make no sense.
None at all. See, in school, that'd be the kid sitting in the corner with the hat on their head in the timeout. Go sit in the corner, But yeah. So that's, yeah.
We're gonna have to finish this next week, man. This is good.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have to do a part 2 to this one, because there's so much we can talk about. We need to talk about. And listen, if you're watching this, and if it's making you reflect and think, reach out to us. Let us know your thoughts. Give us your opinion. We want to be able to share some thoughts from other people. So make sure you reach out to us to do that as well. Connect, subscribe, share, like, follow. Definitely. YouTube as well as podcast. We're pushing both out now, so you have your pickings. You can do either or both. Yeah, but make sure you connect
on TikTok, all of it. We posting content everywhere.
Yeah,
we everywhere with it.
Yeah. So again, thank you again. Part 2 is coming next week. You can follow me on Clarence_Brookins, all social media platforms.
Malik_Brookins, and also Filling the Gap podcast.
Yeah. Hit us up. Instagram.
Everything. Yeah.
Everywhere. We're going to do it. We're going to take over. Help us take it over.
Till next time.
Peace out.
See you.